Mary's River was almost named after the wrong woman. By the time Oregon made it official, the real story was already slipping away. Her story nearly disappeared and was almost overwritten by a louder one. Her name was Mary Lloyd. The river flowing through Corvallis still carries her name. This is the story of how that name survived, even when history tried to give it to someone else. There are different explanations for how Mary's River got its name. One of them claims that employees of the Hudson's Bay Company had earlier called it St. Mary's River. But the most comprehensive record, Oregon Geographic Names, finds no evidence to support that claim. What is known as this? By 1846, the name Mary's River was already in use. It was spoken aloud, used locally, familiar enough to appear in law. On December 12, 1846, the Oregon legislature passed a law that included the name Mary's River. The law made sure the name stayed, but did not explain it. It did not say who Mary was, and that omission mattered. When a name was written into law, Corvallis did not yet exist. There were no streets, no bridges, no property lines. The river served as the main route for travel. Before American settlement, fur traders used different names for the river. They called it Mouse River and sometimes Mice River. Those names came from the fur trade. No record explains their origin, and they disappeared as quickly as they were used. They did not endure. What endured was Mary's River, not because it was dramatic, but because it was already spoken, and in this valley, one name was spoken more than most. This channel shares true stories from the Oregon Trail and early settlers, including details often overlooked in history. If you enjoy this content, please subscribe and like this video. You can also join the channel to support this work, and leave a comment with the story you'd like to see next. Mary Lloyd came to Oregon with her family in 1845. In 1846, she was said to be the first white woman to cross this river in western Benton County, long before Corvallis existed. People who settled this valley knew Mary Lloyd personally. They camped near her family. They crossed the river with her. They spoke her name. That same year, she married John Foster. She lived only a few more years, dying in 1854. Mary Lloyd did not claim land. She founded no town. She left no written record behind her. Her life passed quietly, but when settlers spoke of the river crossing, they spoke her name, and that was enough for it to remain. Years later, after the name Mary's River was already in use, a different explanation began to circulate. This version of the story focused on Adam Wimple, an early settler whose name entered the historical record because of a violent crime. In 1852, Wimple was hanged for murdering his young wife. Her name was Mary. After his execution, a new claim appeared that Wimple had named the river not for his wife, but for his sister who never came to Oregon. The historical record does not confirm the sister's name, or even her existence. What is clear is how the stories became confused. Wimple's crime was widely reported, and his wife's name appeared repeatedly in newspapers. Over time, it became easy to connect the river's name to the only Mary most people remembered. But by the time this explanation began to spread, the name Mary's River had already been in use since at least 1846, years before Wimple's execution. There is no evidence linking him to the naming of the river when a name first appeared. This explanation did not replace the earlier one because it was more accurate. It replaced it because it was easier to remember. History does not always confuse names. Sometimes it simply remembers the wrong one. Mary Lloyd's story did not come with headlines. The explanation did not spread because it was dramatic. It spread because it was local. People who knew Mary Lloyd used her name. Neighbors repeated it. The river crossing took it with them. There was no single document to preserve that story. No moment that demanded retelling. The other explanation had both. It had a printed name, a violent crime, and another Mary, one tied to a story people repeated. Over time, the two became confused. The quieter explanation faded, not because it was less likely, but because it depended on memory instead of record. History forgets unevenly. Accuracy usually comes later. In the late 1840s, settlers began turning promises into streets. By around 1849, Joseph Avery had platted the first town at the mouth of Mary's River. He called it Marysville, a name drawn from the river itself and cemented by local use. Over the next few years, the settlement grew. In 1851, Marysville became the seat of Benton County, but its name duplicated another town on the same stagecoach route, Marysville, California, and that caused confusion. In 1853, the territorial legislature changed the town's name to Corvallis, meaning heart of the valley, while the river kept its original name. Mary's River survived because it was spoken, not because its story was remembered. Long after the explanations faded, the river remained. The river still flows from its headwaters on Mary's Peak, carrying traces of the people who came before, whether their names are remembered or not. What remains is not a single explanation, but a place shaped by many lives, some recorded and others lost. The river keeps the name. The rest is left to memory. Today, the river is easy to overlook. It runs quietly past streets, bridges, and fields. Most people cross it without thinking about its name, or who first spoke it aloud. But the river was here before the town, and it will remain long after these explanations fade.